Rev up your engines! Okay, here I have a Honda Accord. The AC doesn't work. It hasn't worked for years. So the first thing I checked, since you had a bunch of guys working on the stupid thing, I get my fancy scan tool and I'm checking the control unit. She said people mess with the wiring stuff. I'm gonna check that first. Let's start right up. The fan blows, but as you can see, nothing lights up here. I of course checked the fuses, but they're okay because I knew that already. If the fan blows on and off, the unit's getting power, so it's got power. And after hooking up my fancy scan tool, I can see this has got all kinds of problems. The computer module that operates the control unit's bad. Who knows who shorted out what working on it. She hasn't had cold AC for over 3 years, so we're gonna do something simple. With the car running and the fan on, we're gonna get my jumper wires. When it's going to the positive battery terminal right here, and the other end's going to the compressor power. Here's the compressor power wire. I've unplugged it from the wiring harness, and there's the power end. I simply connect that to the battery. There we go. As you can see, the compressor is now running. You can see the front of it running now. It's working, and it's starting to blow cold inside now. It's an old car with a lot of mileage, so we're going to rewire it with a toggle switch to send power to the compressor. It could cost thousands figuring out what went wrong with the computer modules, the wiring. Who knows what people have screwed up working on this thing in the last 3 years. Power with the switch to run the compressor and the cooling fans. Now you can't run the compressor without running the fans, so we're going to go to the fuse box. Here we can see the condenser fan for the AC is this one here, so we'll pull out the relay, and notice when we give power to the pin in the side here, right there, and notice when we give power to the pin here, and the cooling fan comes on. So we're going to wire power to the compressor and to the wiring on the cooling fan module, so it'll turn the condenser fan on when you're running the compressor, so it won't get too much pressure. We're splicing one wire to the compressor wire. We just spliced the wire in there and run it inside the car, because we're going to run it inside to this toggle switch to turn it on and off. The only real hassle is finding a hole to poke through, so I stuck a screwdriver from the other side. You can see it's poked through right there. So to get to the hole, I'm going to do a little trick I've done for years. Get a coat hanger, cut the end off, get it relatively straight, and then poke it through the hole on the inside. When you poke it through, we'll just go under here. We're going to poke this through the hole, the straight end, and it goes. And here, you'll see it came out right here. We're going to get an extra wire that goes to the spool. We're going to tape them to that wire so we can pull them in. One wire will feed the compressor. The other wire is going to go to the battery terminal to send power. Now you can't break Gorilla Tape with gloves. It sticks on them, so doesn't like sweaty hands either. We'll tape these together first. Then we'll tape those wires to our little rod and we can pull it in. Now this car's old. It's got a nice grommet hole. If you got a new car, you might have to drill the whole way through the firewall, but you can always make a hole. Then we pull the wire through and we'll get our two lines. And here you go, there's two wires spliced together. Now I gotta find a place to mount the switch. You get a drill bit, you drill. You look down here, it's pretty easy. We can drill a hole here. There's nothing behind here, it's all empty, so we'll drill a hole here. Just make sure it's the right size for that, which it is. Then we connect the switch to the wires using a little terminal. We just get wire strippers, strip a little bit off the end. You don't want to cut the wire. You want to get all the insulation off. There. And that fits into the eyelet. You're going to screw on, and you just crush it with a pair of pliers and make it tight. Yeah. Now it's nice and tight. Then, of course, you do the same thing with the other wire. So you have one for each end of the switch. Then you just screw the two terminals into your switch. It doesn't matter which way, because it's DC current. It doesn't matter which way you connect them. The power is going to flow regardless. Put each one on. It's best to use screw stuff because it'll stay nice and tight. There's one end. There's the other end. Screws in on the other side so you can complete the circuit. There's the other end. You want it nice and tight because you don't want electrical circuits to be weak. If they're loose, they'll get heat. Now I hate these things coming off, so I put a washer over. As you can see here, we're going to stick it in a hole. There we go. Put a washer on it and then tighten up the bolt that holds it in place. Push it through the hole. Stick a big washer on it so it'll stay in place. If you don't, it'll wiggle as you use it, and that's annoying. This way, with the big washer, you don't have to worry about it getting loose. Tighten it with pliers. Now you got a nice secure switch. So we're back onto the hood. Here's the wires here. And one of them already goes to the compressor that we hooked up. So that one, totally fine. We'll put it over here for the time being. Tied up nice and tight later. But this one here is going to go to power. But we want to be safe, so we're going to put an inline fuse. Stick that on the battery terminal. Stick that on there. So we disconnect the power cable, pull it off, and then stick the wire. It's a very good way to connect them. It's strong. You're not going to have anything get loose then. Then tighten it up. Now it's super tight and it isn't going to come off. Then we'll splice the wire that goes to the toggle switch here you can hear the compressor come on. We know it's working now. Now, if you remember, I told you, you can't turn the compressor on and not the fan or it'll overheat. So we got another wire here on a spade terminal that will squeeze on. We squeeze that on, get it nice and tight. You don't want it to be loose. The tighter, the better. Now it's super tight. Then if you remember from the beginning, we're gonna go to the terminal here that turns the fan on and plug it in there. Then we'll take the other end of that wire, splice it into the power coming out of the switch. And we'll splice the wire onto this wire, that's the power wire coming off the switch. Now this is open-ended, so we're gonna solder this one on. And before we seal everything up, let's see if everything works. We'll turn the switch on and compressor clicks and the fan works. Turn it off, it goes off. Now we'll clean all the messes up. So now comes the real test. Let's start her up. Have the fan on and turn the switch on. Nice cold air and I need it now. It's drizzling, it's humid and hot out here. And as you can see under the hood, the fan's working down there. The compressor's spinning, and we have success. Got a really old car, got the AC working. You don't want to buy all that computer stuff on something this old. You can bypass it all. Now, of course, any of the safety stuff's gone. If you hear the belt start to squeal or you see smoke, turn the switch off to shut the compressor off. It doesn't have a safety valve on it now. If you really wanted, you could put a safety valve to a pressure and wire it with a relay to the switch. Pain in the butt, it's an old car. Turn the switch on, you get cold air, great. If it stops, just turn the switch off. That'll turn the compressor off. So now you know, for just a few bucks, you might be able to get your old car's air conditioning running again nice and cold. And here's some bonus questions and answers. Perilina says, should I change my spark plugs? I'm in Toronto. I got an 05 Buick Rendezvous all-wheel drive V6 with 178,000 kilometers. Owned since new. Never changed the spark plugs. GM said to change every 160,000 kilometers. Should I? It starts okay. Yes, I would change them. Here's the thing about spark plugs. Modern spark plugs are iridium, or some of them are even more complex. They don't wear that much, but they do wear some. Only they're so well made, they'll still run fine. As they age, they might use a little bit extra energy. That strains your ignition system, and I've seen people that have gone too far and the car ran okay and then one day it stopped running because it strained the ignition system so much that eventually parts of it burned out, coils burned out, the computer drivers that run them burned out because they had to work too hard because the old spark plugs are taking too much power. So yes, I would change them now because even though it runs okay, you can be going on borrowed time and wearing the rest of the ignition system by having old worn spark plugs in it. Johnny Rumlick says, my engine stalled after coming to a stop on an off-highway ramp going uphill. The engine stalled. I turned the ignition key off and on. The engine started, and it only stalled like that. Why could that be? It's a 1995 Lexus. It's an old car. Things stick. When you decelerate, do my video. Make your car run better with a little spray cleaner. You get some throttle spray cleaner, clean the throttle. That could be sticking. And MAF's airflow sensor cleaner. MAF cleaner. Don't mix them up. Use one for one, one for the other. Clean the mass airflow sensor. You'll probably find it'll stop stalling. Carbon builds up on them, and then when you let go fast, if the carbon's there, they stick a little bit open, and if they're too open and you stop fast, you're getting too much air, not enough fuel, and they'll stall. I'll guarantee you that's probably it, because I see that with them. They do carbon up over time. You do need to clean the throttles once in a while. Things will get dirty and need a little cleaning. And since it's inside that air hose, it's not hard to get to, but you don't see it, because it's covered up by the intake air hose. You take it off, you'll see there's probably a bunch of carbon. Spray it. Use my video and that'll solve your problem 99% of the time. Webmaster Colt says, I have no power when I step on the gas. Got a Toyota Ventus 2001. When I step on the gas, it won't rev up. It stutters, misfires, and sometimes shuts down. Sometimes I see a little bit of white smoke. The engine idle's rough. The engine is secondhand and has been rebuilt. I'm assuming the guy didn't rebuild it. They tell you they're second engines, they're rebuilt. Bunch of BS. You get white smoke, generally you're starting to burn oil because the engine's worn out. Now, the first thing you want to do is take all the spark plugs out, do a wet and dry compression test of the engine. Put a compression tester in all 6 cylinders, see what it is dry. Put a teaspoon of oil in each one, see what happens. If the pressure goes up a lot in all or some of them, the piston rings are worn out. I can guarantee you that's probably the problem. The guy just sold you an engine as a piece of crap and said it was rebuilt. I've seen that so many times. Guys don't know what they're talking about, or they didn't even do anything. I've seen when they said they were rebuilt engine, all they did was clean the engine, spray paint parts black, and say, oh look, it's a rebuilt engine. And then you take off the valve covers, you see they're full of gunk inside. Never trust secondhand engines when people say they're rebuilt. Most of it is a line of baloney. Because Toyotas generally don't have a problem with running with their computer systems or fuel injection systems or ignition systems without tripping codes, and you're not getting any codes that are tripping. I'm assuming you just got a crappy engine from that guy. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.